There was a night, many years ago, when a woman came into my consulting room with a dream she could not forget. She had dreamt of a golden scarab, an Egyptian beetle, glowing as if lit from within. She told me this dream with the embarrassed laugh of a rational European, a woman who had been educated to dismiss such things as nonsense. And as she spoke, I heard a soft tapping against the window behind me. I turned, opened the glass, and into my hand fell a beetle, a rose truffle, the closest creature our latitude offers to the golden scarab of the Nile. I placed it gently on her palm. She did not speak for a long time, and I understood in that silence that something in her had cracked open, something the rigid walls of her reason had been guarding for decades. The world had answered her dream, and from that moment her healing began. I have told this story many times in my life, and each time I tell it, someone in the room laughs nervously, and someone else falls completely still. The laughter and the stillness are not two reactions. They are the same reaction at different depths. Because every human being has, at some point, encountered a moment that could not be explained by chance, a number that kept appearing, a stranger who spoke the exact words they needed to hear, a song that played at the precise instant of their grief, a dream that arrived the night before the news, and every human being has had to decide what to do with that moment, to laugh it away, or to fall silent, to dismiss the sign as coincidence, or to ask with trembling asterisk, what is speaking to me? This is the question I want to walk into tonight. Not because I want to convince you of anything. I have never been a man who wished to convert, but because I believe, and I have come to believe this through 50 years of listening to the dreams and silences of suffering souls, that there is a language older than words, and that this language has never stopped speaking to us. We have only stopped listening. Modern man has constructed for himself a sealed room. He has built walls of reason, ceilings of materialism, floors of statistics. He has decorated his room with the bright lamps of technology, and he has told himself that this room is the whole world. Anything that does not enter through the door of measurement is suspected of being a trespasser. And yet, and this is the strange thing, within this sealed room, modern man is suffocating. He cannot sleep. He cannot rest. He medicates his anxiety. He numbs his longing. He scrolls and scrolls through screens, searching for something he cannot name. He has everything, and he feels that he has nothing. Why? Because the room is sealed. But the soul was not built for sealed rooms. The soul was built to breathe a different air, the air of meaning. And meaning, my friends, does not arrive through the front door of logic. It enters through the cracks. It enters through the dream. It enters through what the ancients called asterisk sign. Now, I must be careful here. When I speak of signs, I do not mean superstition. I do not mean the cheap occultism of the marketplace, the fortune tellers who promise you a husband and a fortune for a coin. I am speaking of something else entirely. I am speaking of a principle I came to name asterisk synchronicity asterisk, the meaningful coincidence of an inner state and an outer event, where neither can be explained as the cause of the other, and yet the two together carry a meaning that strikes the soul like lightning. The scarab at the window was such a moment, and I assure you, in the course of a long life, I encountered hundreds of them. The pattern was too consistent to be dismissed. Reality, it seemed, was not a dead mechanism. Reality was, at certain moments, asterisk responsive asterisk, but the most surprising part is yet to come. Because the question is not whether signs exist. The question is, asterisk, who is sending them? Here we must descend into deeper waters. The ancient peoples had no difficulty with this question. They said, the gods are speaking. The Egyptians watched the flight of the ibis, and read the will of Thoth. The Greeks listened to the rustling of leaves at Dodona, and heard the voice of Zeus. The Hebrews saw burning bushes and pillars of fire. The simple villager in every culture has always known that when the bird flies into the house, when the candle goes out without wind, when the dream arrives on the eve of death, asterisk, something is speaking, asterisk. We moderns have given ourselves the great gift of dismissing all of this as primitive imagination. And in doing so, we have made ourselves the most isolated species that has ever walked the earth. I do not ask you to return to the religion of your grandmother, if that is no longer alive for you. I am not a preacher, but I ask you to consider this. Perhaps the ancient peoples were not naive. Perhaps they were experiencing something real in the only language they had, the language of mythology. And perhaps what they called asterisk, the voice of the gods. Asterisk, we might now call more cautiously, asterisk, the voice of the unconscious, asterisk. Or, and here I will speak frankly, perhaps the unconscious itself is the doorway through which something greater than the unconscious speaks. I have never been able to determine in all my decades of work where the psyche ends and where the world begins. The deeper I went into the soul, the more I found that the soul was not contained inside the skull. It opened at its furthest depths into something that resembled the world itself. And the world, at its deepest, seemed to know us. Let me tell you what I have observed about the way signs come. They almost never come when life is comfortable. They come at thresholds. They come when a marriage is about to end, when a vocation is about to be chosen or refused, when a death has occurred, when an illness has stripped a person bare, when a long-held identity is breaking apart. They come precisely at those moments when the ego, that proud captain of the conscious life, has run aground, when the maps no longer work, when reason has shown its limits. It is then, and only then, that the deeper layers of the psyche begin to stir and the world begins to whisper. The sign is the whisper of the threshold. Here begins the darkest game of the unconscious. Because the sign, when it arrives, is rarely what we wanted. It is rarely a comfort. More often, it is a summons. The ancient Greeks knew this. When Odysseus saw the eagle, when Achilles heard the voice of his mother from the waves, the message was not, everything will be fine. The message was, asterisk, you must change your direction. Asterisk. The sign is not a pat on the head. It is a hand on the shoulder, turning you toward a road you have been avoiding for years. And this is why I think modern man has worked so hard to silence the signs. Not because he does not believe in them, but because he secretly does asterisk, and he is afraid of what they will ask of him. Consider what is happening in your own life as you listen to me now. You came to this video. You clicked on a title that promised to speak about signs from God. Why? Be honest with yourself. Did you come because something has been happening, something small, something repeated, something you have been trying to dismiss, and you wanted just for a moment to ask the question you have not allowed yourself to ask? Asterisk, is something speaking to me? Asterisk, I do not need to know the answer. You do. And the very fact that you are still here listening to an old man's voice on a screen suggests that the whisper has already begun. I want to describe to you the most common forms in which I have seen the signs appear. I do this not so that you may turn them into a list, a recipe, a superstition. I do this so that you may recognize in your own life what you may have been overlooking. The first is the dream. There is no doorway more reliable. The dream is the place where the unconscious speaks without disguise, or rather in its own disguises, which are more honest than the disguises of the day. I have studied thousands of dreams, and I tell you with all the certainty I possess that dreams are not random electrical discharges. They are letters. They are letters from a part of yourself that knows what your ego refuses to know. When a dream is repeated, when an image returns night after night, when a figure appears who does not belong to your daily life, pay attention. Something is being delivered to your door. The unconscious speaks in symbols, in pictures, in mythological shapes. But like any language, it can be learned. Begin by writing them down. Begin by treating them as worthy of being heard. The soul responds to attention as a flower responds to light. The second is the meaningful coincidence, what I have called synchronicity. You think of an old friend you have not seen in 20 years, and that afternoon the telephone rings, and it is her voice. You are wrestling with a question about your work, and you open a book at random, and the first sentence answers you. You are walking through grief, and a stranger on the street speaks the exact phrase your mother used to say. These moments are not statistically impossible. Anything is statistically possible. But the question is not statistical. The question is asterisk, qualitative asterisk. The question is, what did it feel like? Did it feel like noise, or did it feel like a hand reaching through the veil? The soul knows the difference. It is only the mind that pretends not to. The third is the body itself. Modern man has forgotten that the body is one of the great organs of revelation. The sudden illness that arrives precisely when you have betrayed your own truth. The pain in the chest that appears the week you signed away your dream. The exhaustion that descends when you have been living someone else's life. These are not random. They are also signs. The body, which is the most ancient layer of the psyche, refuses what the conscious mind has tried to swallow. I have seen patients recover from years of physical suffering the moment they admitted what their soul had been trying to say. And I have seen others who refused the message die of it. The fourth, and perhaps the most overlooked, is the encounter. The person who appears in your life at the precise moment of your need. The teacher you find when you are ready. The book whose author you have never heard of, which falls open at the right page. The conversation with a stranger that lasts 20 minutes and changes the trajectory of a decade. These are not accidents. The world is permeable in places. The world has doors, and at the thresholds of our lives, those doors open more often than we realize. What Jung said about this is deeply unsettling, and I will say it now in my own voice plainly. I have come to believe that the universe is not indifferent to the human soul. I have come to believe, not as a matter of doctrine, but as a matter of repeated observation, that there is a relationship between the inner life of the individual and the outer events of the world. I cannot prove this in the manner of a laboratory experiment. The phenomena in question are not repeatable on demand. They appear when the soul is in a certain state of openness. And yet, having watched them appear over and over, I cannot in good conscience deny what I have seen. The universe is not a machine. The universe contains, at the very least, asterisk moments of meaning, asterisk. And whether you call the source of those moments God, or the self, or the Tao, the experience is the same. Something speaks. And the question is whether you will listen. Let us now turn to the matter that I suspect is most painful for many of you. Asterisk. Why do the signs sometimes seem absent? Asterisk. Why does the soul cry out, and the heavens remain silent, and the days pass in their grey unbroken wait? I have known this silence. Every honest seeker has known it. Even the saints called it the dark night. And I will not insult you with easy answers, but I will offer you what I have come to understand. The signs do not stop. The signs are constant. What changes is our capacity to perceive them. There are seasons in a life when the soul is closed for reasons it does not understand. Grief closes it. Bitterness closes it. The accumulated betrayals of childhood close it. The relentless noise of the modern world, the screens, the notifications, the manufactured urgencies, closes it. The soul becomes like a man sitting in a room full of music, but with his hands clamped over his ears. The music does not stop. He has stopped hearing it. And the work then is not to summon louder music. The work is to lower the hands. How does one lower the hands? Not by force. The unconscious cannot be commanded, but by a slow, patient cultivation of inner stillness. By making in your day a small chapel of silence, even 10 minutes, where no screen is allowed, no voice is allowed, no purpose is allowed. By keeping a notebook in which you record the small strangenesses of your days, the dreams, the repetitions, the moments that struck you as odd. By walking alone in nature, where the older language of the world still speaks unaltered. The signs will return, or rather, your capacity to recognize them will return. The detail most people overlook hides precisely here. They imagine that signs are meant to give them answers, to deliver them from the labor of choice. But signs do not work this way. A sign does not say, asterisk, do this, do that, asterisk. A sign says, asterisk, I am here. I am with you. The path you are on is being watched. Take the next step. The sign is not a map. The sign is a companion. And the soul that mistakes the sign for the map will be disappointed every time. We are not meant to be passive recipients of divine instruction. We are meant to be participants in a dialogue. This brings me to something I want to speak of with great care, because it has been distorted in our time. The notion of signs from God has in our era become a kind of consumer good. There are entire industries built upon promising people that if they think the right thoughts, the universe will deliver to them what they wish for. This is not what I am speaking of. This is the corruption of an ancient truth. The signs are not vending machines. The universe is not a delivery service. And the soul that approaches the sacred with the posture of a consumer will receive precisely the silence it deserves. The true sign almost never delivers what the ego wanted. It delivers what the soul required. These are not the same thing. The ego wants comfort, security, recognition, the absence of suffering. The soul wants asterisk individuation, asterisk, the long and difficult becoming of the person you were meant to be. And the signs serve the soul, not the ego. This is why, so often, the sign appears at the moment of a failure, a loss, a humiliation, a defeat. The ego sees only the catastrophe. The soul sees in the rubble the foundation that was finally exposed. And the wise man, looking back over his life, understands that the gifts he received were almost always disguised as wounds. The mythologies of the world are full of this teaching. Consider Jacob wrestling all night with a stranger by the river Jabbok. He does not know it is an angel. He does not know it is God. He only knows that he is fighting for his life. And in the morning he is wounded. His hip is dislocated for the rest of his days. But he is also blessed. He is renamed. He becomes Israel. The wound and the blessing arrive together. Consider Job, stripped of everything, who in his suffering finally hears the voice from the whirlwind. Consider the alchemist, who taught that gold could not be made without the asterisk, the nigrido asterisk, the blackening, the dark phase where everything dies. The sign of transformation is always a death, and the soul that flees from every darkness will never see the light that lives in it. The real turning point begins right here. Many who come to me speak of waiting for a sign. They sit in their houses, they go to their jobs, they perform the rituals of their lives, and they wait. They believe that if a sign comes, it will be unambiguous, a thunderclap, a vision, a voice from the sky. They are waiting for the kind of sign that almost never arrives, because such signs are not for ordinary lives, but for the rare prophet. And while they wait, they fail to notice the signs that have been arriving every day. The recurring dream that they have not written down, the encounter that they have not honored, the small inner voice that has been telling them for years what they need to do and which they have called anxiety or weakness or fantasy. The signs are not somewhere else. The signs are in the room with you. They have been waiting for you to lift your eyes from the floor. What mythology has been trying to tell us for centuries is not a list of stories. It is a single message, repeated in 1,000 forms. Asterisk, you are being called asterisk. The hero is called from his ordinary village. The prophet is called from his sleep. The lover is called by a glance across the room. The whole human inheritance is a record of souls who heard the call and souls who refused it. And here is something I have come to understand with great sorrow. The souls who refused the call did not thereby escape their lives. They simply lived their lives as a long muffled noise of regret. The call did not stop calling. They only stopped listening. And the unlived life became their fate. Asterisk, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Asterisk, your fate is not given to you from outside. Your fate is the shape your unlived life takes when you refuse to live it consciously. And the signs are the universe's persistent attempt to invite you to live consciously before it is too late. I am aware that some of you listening to me now are skeptical. I do not ask you to abandon your skepticism. Skepticism is a noble instrument when it is wielded honestly. But I ask you to apply your skepticism in both directions. Be skeptical of the easy belief in signs. Yes, the credulous are a danger to themselves. But also be skeptical of the easy disbelief. Ask yourself, have I actually examined my own experience? Or have I dismissed it in advance because I was told that to take it seriously would be embarrassing? The honest skeptic must investigate. He must not assume. And if he investigates with patience his own dreams, his own synchronicities, his own encounters, he will find that there is more in his life than his philosophy has allowed for. Let me speak of one more thing before I close. I have spoken of the signs, but I have not yet spoken of the asterisk signer asterisk, who in the end is sending these signs. Here I confess, I reach the edge of what I can say with the authority of my profession. As a psychologist, I can describe the phenomena. I can tell you that they arise from the meeting of the conscious ego and what I have called the self, that deeper center of the psyche, which holds within it the totality of who you are, including the parts you have not yet met. The self speaks, the self orchestrates, the self draws into your life the very experiences you need in order to grow. But, and I say this with all the humility I have learned, the self, when one encounters it deeply, does not feel like a mere part of oneself. It feels like something one is encountering. It has its own intelligence. It has its own intentions. It treats the ego as a horseman treats a horse, with care, with discipline, with a destination that the horse does not know. And when men and women across the centuries have called this presence God, I do not think they were entirely mistaken. They were speaking in the language available to them of something I have also encountered. The mystics of all traditions have described the same shape. The names differ. The experience does not. Whether we say God or Atman or the self, we are pointing toward a reality that exceeds our capacity to describe. The signs come from this reality. And the signs are, I have come to believe, asterisk love, asterisk. Not the love of a romantic novel, the love of a force that refuses to let you remain unborn. The love that sends the wound that wakes you. The love that sends the friend at the right moment. The love that sends the dream you cannot forget. So I will leave you with this. Tonight, when you turn off this screen, I want you to do something small. Take a piece of paper. Write down, without judgment, 3 things that have happened in the last month which you cannot easily explain. A dream that struck you. A coincidence that lingered. An encounter that arrived as if delivered. A symptom in your body that began when nothing else had changed. Just 3. Do not interpret them yet. Do not force them to mean anything. Simply write them down and read them slowly. And ask yourself, with as much honesty as you can summon, asterisk, if these were not accidents, if these were a letter from somewhere deeper than I have allowed myself to consider, what would the letter be trying to say? You may find nothing. That too is information. You may find a thread, a hint, a direction. That too is information. But the act of asking the question, the simple, dignified act of opening the door even an inch, is the beginning of a different kind of life. It is the beginning of the dialogue. And once the dialogue has begun, the signs become more frequent, more clear, more eloquent. Not because the universe has changed, because asterisk you asterisk have changed. The room is no longer sealed. The window is open, and through the window a beetle is tapping. I have lived a long life. I have watched men of great intelligence die in despair, having refused the dialogue. I have watched simple souls with no philosophy at all die in peace because they had listened. The difference between them was not their education, nor their wealth, nor their gifts. The difference was whether they had taken seriously the small, persistent whispers of their own existence. The signs were given to both. Only one of them heard. Do not wait for the thunder. The thunder almost never comes. What comes is the gentle, repeated, almost embarrassing nudge of the soul itself, reaching for you through whatever channels remain open. The dream, the song, the chance encounter, the line in a book you opened at random, the words of an old psychiatrist speaking to you from a screen at a strange hour of the night. These are the signs that have been with you all along. The only question that remains is the oldest question of all, asterisk. When was the last time you stopped and listened and dared to answer?